What is going on YouTube? Running Gun Sports back here with another video. Today is our weekly NFL news update. Don't got a lot of news to talk about, but we got some Julio Jones news to talk about, a lot of it, and we're here to talk about it. And with that being said, like this video, share this video, and follow our social media pages at runningun_sports on Instagram and at runningun_sports on TikTok. We post 3 times a week college football updates, uh, news updates, NFL news updates, and weekly team reviews for the NFL. And we've had a lot of fun doing that. The entire AFC South, AFC East, AFC North. And now we're getting through the AFC West. And then we're going to start with the AFC, and then we're going to finish the AFC West and then move over to the NFC. And it'll be a lot of fun to talk about. By the time we finish all those teams, it will be about week 1 of the football season. So we look forward to it. And with that being said, let's get right into the video. Eagles signed veteran defensive end Ryan Kerrigan from the Washington football team. 2020, Ryan Kerrigan had 9 solo tackles, 17 total tackles, 5.5 sacks. He's 32 years old, a little bit older. Probably doesn't have many years left in the tank, but a good pickup for that Eagles. Really, any boost for that team. The Eagles this year, they're a team where a lot of people are probably going to look at them and say that they're going to be pretty bad, but I think with Jalen Hurts, they were able to steal him in the draft last year, and I think that he going as a second round pick is very lucky for the Eagles to get. He did very well in college with Alabama, led them to the national championship. Obviously didn't win it for him, but he was a part of a national championship team, led him to 2 national championships, but lost in one, and then was benched in the other. But one way or another, he's a very solid player and deserves all the credit in the world. Did very well at Oklahoma, made it to the playoffs, college football playoffs. So very good season for Jalen Hurts all around every year, college football, and so it's just impressive. And getting him as a second round pick is just truthfully a steal. And I think that the Eagles really made that draft pick worth it. And with Carson Wentz gone, he's obviously going to be the starter most likely, and it's going to be exciting to see what he can do. But with that being said, he may be on the hot seat, and if a lot of people aren't believing in him as much, and I do believe in him personally. I think he'll do very well with the Eagles, and bringing in Devontae Smith, former college teammate, is really going to help him even more. So I think that personally they'll do just fine, if pretty good, and I think that they won't finish at the bottom of their division. And I think that the division next year will be a little bit more competitive than it was last year. Last year was the NFC least, the worst division, and really the Cowboys, in my opinion, will win it if Dak Prescott can stay healthy, which hopefully he does. I don't see him having a problem not staying healthy, and I think that he'll do quite well. But I think that if Jalen Hurts doesn't do well, a lot of people are going to be questioning the Eagles for picking him, and with the good, the bad comes, and with the bad comes the critics, and it's tough to be a quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it takes a very strong person, and if Jalen Hurts can do it, great. If not, he's going to get a lot of haters, and he already has a lot for whatever reason it is. Very, very good player and a very good person from what I've seen from him in his college level in the NFL so far. But I think he'll have no problem doing well, especially with some surrounding pieces like Devontae Smith, and it will be nice. And Travis Fulgham is a very good, talented wide receiver as well, and that will really help them out a lot. And I think that the Eagles could do a lot better than people are expecting. Moving on to the Julio Jones news that we were talking about earlier, the Falcons are reportedly been looking for a trade for 7-time Pro Bowler Julio Jones with the Patriots, and the Patriots and Falcons have had internal discussions with the Patriots trying to acquire Julio Jones from the Falcons, and there's a lot of other teams talking to Julio Jones. Julio Jones has come out and said he would like to play with current Patriots quarterback Cam Newton, which is quite odd, honestly, considering that Cam Newton, I think most people you ask would say that Cam Newton probably will not play all 16 games this season. So it's really weird that Julio Jones would come out and say that, especially considering the fact that Julio Jones, Cam Newton went to rival colleges, Auburn, Alabama, and I'm a huge fan of Julio Jones myself. There's a Julio Jones jersey to the right of me right now where I'm recording, literally on the wall, and I don't think Julio Jones, the best move for him would be to play with Cam Newton. I think that honestly, there's better quarterbacks out there that he would do a lot better with. Cam Newton this year had 12 rushing touchdowns and 8 passing touchdowns, and I don't see why Julio Jones would want to play with him at all. I don't see any reason to that or any sense to that at all. And maybe he will, but maybe he wants to play with Mac Jones, former Alabama quarterback who's on the Patriots. A lot of people expect him to take the starting role at some point in the season, which would not surprise me at all. Mac Jones, a very talented quarterback, last year threw for 4,500 passing yards and 41 touchdowns. So maybe he wants to play with Mac Jones and just doesn't want to say that he wants to play with Mac Jones. I don't know what the case may be, but I don't think the Patriots would be the best fit for them. They went out and spent a lot of money, still have a lot left over, and they could pick him up if they wanted to. It would help, and maybe, but I think that there's better options out there. But at the end of the day, there's worser options at the same time. So we'll see what happens. 7 other trade locations have been discussed, such as the Cardinals, 49ers, Browns, Colts, Jets, and Jaguars, and Dolphins. So right now, we're really just going to talk about each team and why we think that will work or not, and just give you our thoughts on it. So the Cardinals obviously they have DeAndre Hopkins, and I think Julio Jones the best wide receiver in the NFL when healthy by far. Hopkins and Devontae Adams this year were probably the fan favorites for best wide receiver this year. Out of the two of them, I think Hopkins is probably a bit better, just considering Hopkins has been around and gone and done so well in different teams. But Devontae Adams is also a very good player as well. So I don't. There's not much separating them at all. They're two different types of receivers, and Devontae Adams is more of a run after catch type of guy. Runs very good routes. DeAndre Hopkins is a possession type of receiver, go up and catch almost any ball. But I don't think that Julio Jones on the Cardinals will work that well. I think that DeAndre Hopkins, he wants to be on a team where he's really the only receiver on that type of level. DeAndre Hopkins is an elite wide receiver, and I think that he wants to be on a team where he's the only guy and doesn't want to have to split his reps with him, split catches with him, and I think that he wants to be the leader of that receiving core, which is fine, and it's just why I don't think Julio Jones would do good with the Arizona Cardinals. Moving on to the 49ers, another NFC West team, and obviously the Seahawks rule that division in wide receiving core with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. 49ers have had decent quarterback play and decent receiver play. Their defense is the reason they made the Super Bowl just 2 years ago, but I think that that it would be a good fit. This is one of the teams that I really think that Julio Jones would do good on. There's no wide receiver that has really the same amount of talent or half the talent that Julio Jones has in comparison. And Julio Jones him and Calvin Ridley was a very good core together, and they did well, and they bring in Kyle Pitts, and I think Julio Jones just doesn't want to have to split all his catches and stats with 2 other guys, especially Kyle Pitts, who could be the best player coming out of this draft class, arguably. And I think if he goes to the 49ers, he'll be the only wide receiver. Trey Lance, the rookie quarterback, he'll throw the ball to him a ton. He'll get all the stats in the world. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll do good. So 49ers is one of the teams where I really think that Julio Jones would thrive on. And as a Seahawks fan, being a huge Julio Jones fan, I'd hate to see that, but I think that they'd honestly do very well. The Cleveland Browns, this is one of them that I don't see working out at all. And they already have a solid wide receiving core with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. And possibly maybe you trade Odell Beckham Jr. to the Falcons and and Julio Jones goes over to the Browns, which could possibly work. But Odell Beckham Jr. gets injured. He seems to be injury prone, and I think that the Falcons would have a hard time taking that trade. Now, if he could stay healthy and it would be a fair trade in my opinion, but I still think Julio Jones is a lot better than Odell Beckham Jr. So I just think that there's really no fair trade that the Browns could offer there with Odell Beckham Jr. having so many injury problems. Number two, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are really one of the teams where a lot of people make the argument that Julio Jones' career has been wasted in Atlanta, which I very much agree. So with made the Super Bowl, I really would love to see Julio Jones win a Super Bowl before he retires. And he's a great player. He's getting towards the end of his career, unfortunately, especially with these injuries. But with the Colts, I just think that his career would be wasted even more. Carson Wentz has never had a good wide receiver, and I don't know how he'd do with a good wide receiver if he'd decide to just throw it to him or if he distribute the ball evenly. I kind of have a hard time seeing Carson Wentz do well, and we haven't really seen Carson Wentz at all on the Colts, so who knows how he'll do. The Jets is a team that I think would work well with Julio Jones, or Julio Jones will work well on, vice versa, however you want to say it. And I think it's because Zach Wilson, new rookie quarterback coming in, and I think that he would. Who wouldn't? What rookie quarterback would not want to play with a seven-time Pro Bowler in Julio Jones? I mean, they picked up a very talented wide receiving core, and the only reason I don't see this working out in a way is because they picked up Elijah Moore and from the draft, and then they picked up Corey Davis from the Titans this offseason. So I think that splitting the reps would be a problem for Julio Jones, but I still think that if Julio Jones landed on that team, he's probably better than both those guys combined, and he would be able to make a big difference either way, and he'd still probably be the number one receiver on that team. That's why I think he'll do well. The Jacksonville Jaguars, a team I just don't think will work well at all, just for the same argument of the Indianapolis Colts, just wasting his career. And Trevor Lawrence, yes, he's probably the best quarterback out of these guys in this draft class. And Julio Jones is a great option for any rookie quarterback, but I just don't see Julio Jones fitting in with that team. And obviously, he'd be the best wide receiver out of any of those guys for sure. But I think that it'd just be wasting his career. I think Julio Jones really is trying to win a Super Bowl, and he's the Jaguars is not the team to go to. The Miami Dolphins is a team that I really like. Julio Jones would like to see him go to. With Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle, college teammates, it would just be such a good fit, and they could split the reps. Julio Jones split reps with Calvin Ridley with the Falcons, another Alabama wide receiver, and they both did very well and had great years, Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. So Jalen Waddle, who I think will be great at the next level, could easily split the stats, the catches with Julio Jones, and I don't think it would be a problem at all. And Julio Jones would be able to do that, and less workload for him, and he doesn't need to be doing all of it, especially at his age, and he's been having some injury problems. But I think that Julio Jones on the Dolphins would just be a very good fit, and Tua to Julio would be a dream to watch and be a ton of fun to watch. Despite all those 7 rumored trade destinations, a picture of Julio Jones recently wearing a Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt with a fan has surfaced. The picture was recent, as I mentioned, and Julio Jones has also been working out with Derrick Henry. And the talk of the trade with the Cowboys would be that Michael Gallup would be traded for Julio Jones, and I think that maybe the Cowboys would work, but they have a very stacked receiving core as well. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and obviously Michael Gallup, but if they traded Michael Gallup for Julio Jones, then I don't think that's a fair trade at all. I think that they'd have to trade CeeDee Lamb for Julio Jones personally, and I just think that Julio Jones could split the reps with Amari Cooper, and I think that, but not with CeeDee Lamb. There's just too much to go around, and it would cause some guys to not get the catches and stats that they want, and that can cause problems in locker rooms sometimes. We've seen it happen before. I think Julio Jones wants to get back to healthy, and he wants to be the number one wide receiver on his team. And with Amari Cooper, who's fairly younger than Julio Jones, I think that he'd have a hard time, you know, being the number one wide receiver. Amari Cooper is just a great route runner, probably the best route runner in the league, and it would be tough for Julio Jones to split reps with him. That will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, share this with your friends, and thanks for watching.